best exercise for building glutes? And that's what we're going to look at today. You know, the one where you put a bar on your hips and then you thrust it up and down. Yes, and it can make you feel quite strong because you can load up. It's a bit faffy changing all the weights on it and stuff like that. And we want to make sure that we are really getting every muscle fibre excited in that glute. So we need to make sure that we're getting as many muscle fibres going at one time. That can be a little bit tricky with the hip thruster, purely because it's mainly that you want it to be about the glutes, but what it ends up being is a lot about the thrusting. And the challenge is if your shoulders start to slip back off the bench, or if not, your knees have got to move away, unless you've got sort of telescopic leg that can just into each other. And then that becomes a bit more difficult, because rather than it being about actually the muscles that are crossing the hip, it becomes more about the shins. So if you've ever been doing your hip thruster and you found that the thing that gets fatigued most and earliest is the knobbly bit at the top of this little bit, but it's not so much about getting all those muscle fibers firing up at the same time in the bridge. It might be that there you're going, yeah, it's a great exercise, love it, love it, love it. Is it the best? Is it the best for getting the glutes? Some people love a squat. I like the fact that with a squat, you feel stable, right? You feel really stable, which means you can go, I feel strong. And you can rack up and stack up and you can take a load of weight. What happens in those movements, you'll notice, well, we've got, for a start, generally external rotation, unless you're not the form police and you're allowing someone's knees to go in, getting that knee valgus, that Elvis Presley, that abduction, which incidentally would get more of the glutes. Why would it get more of the glutes? Well, because the glute maximus here starts on this gluteal line. Okay, so on that ilium, in the sacrum, and it laterally comes across that hip and it inserts at the greater trochanter. I have to work very hard to say that. Yeah, so anyway, goes across there and it goes into the tension fasciae lata at the side of the leg. But the important part is it's lateral. Okay, that means that any movement, if we want to really get those muscle fibers going, yeah, I'm excited, you need to get them from all angles. All right, so a bit like a Christmas tree, you don't want to just switch on each different light on your Christmas tree individual. You want them all to come on at once. So the best way of getting them all to come on at once is to do a movement that takes that muscle through sagittal plane and through that transverse plane. If you can get the frontal plane as well, brilliant. But the ones it gets really super excited about are decelerating flexion and decelerating internal rotation. The glute max loves to lift, okay? I mean, it just loves it. I mean, if you listen quietly, you could just go, you can hear it going, yeah, I loved it. I love to lift. I just love to lift. That's it, right? So what you could do, yes, you could do this because then you can lift, go, oh, rah, I'm rah, super strong. But then we're only getting lights on that straight part. And we need to get lights all wrapped around that hip. To get them wrapped around the hip, let's go with a squat. We could have our imaginary bar. Let me just pick up my imaginary bar. Okay, it's comfortable. Yeah, and now I'm going to just go onto one leg. Yeah, it's all right, don't worry, I've got the skill. So we're going to come down, and already what's happened with my imaginary bar is I've loaded into the glute. And can you see what happened to my hip? The moment I took that foot off, I went more to the side. So I've got more of the glute meat. I've got more adduction in that hip for those that want to be a little bit more geeky. I've got to get on with this because I tell you what, it's getting very, very heavy. So now from here, maybe I come down And just by doing that, this leg is actually coming forward, which means that pelvis is coming in and I'm getting that internal rotation. But I could bring that down here. Or maybe if you haven't got the skill to do that at the moment, just start off with making sure that your weight is in that right hip that you want and rotating that bar through, okay? So there are a couple of things you can do. If you are a little bit more skillful in your one-legged squat, oh, all right, in here. Now, it's getting heavy. Okay, obviously, if your client likes a deadlift, then you could use a deadlift. It's funny how it's never my glutes that fatigue first in a deadlift, it's always my wrists. Now I better get going before these get tired. Yep, so let's put that weight on the floor, and now we're going to pick up that heavy weight. Yeah. But is that the best exercise for a glute? Well, probably not. Not if you want all those lights to flash up all at once. Now maybe let's take that into a one-legged deadlift. You're wild, Joe. You're wild. You get the form police on you. Okay, so don't worry. I've got the skill. Yep. And choose your weight that will create an adaptation. I like to leave it on the floor. Why? Because now my glute is going to be on absolute fire to get this, with an imaginary weight or without an imaginary weight. I mean, with a weight, even more, right? And then, yeah, to make that even more challenging, let's add a little bit more internal rotation. God, that bar's just pulling me over now. Oh, all right, pop it down. Could leave it there, pick it back up for a screamer. I'm going to put this weight down now, just bear with me. What you could also do is you could get a dumbbell. Then you could put your dumbbell down onto the floor. One leg, get a little bit more in there. Yep. And now you could pick up that dumbbell or kettlebell. Now what about if I put this dumbbell into this hand here, and I'll just pick up this other dumbbell over there. Now I've got my two dumbbells just so that I can load. And now I'm going to go from 2 to 1 to the side. So let's just start easy. So I'm getting much more frontal plane. Let's add a 2 to 1 jump. How many exercises have you counted so far? These have all been hollow. Now, if you want maximum amount of growth, I'm just going to put these down. If you want maximum amount of growth and you want to choose the exercises for your client, think about the exercise that's going to get the muscle excited in all 3 planes of motion at once. Okay, so locally, which one can get hold of all of it? Then think about which sequencing of events you want, because we want to be able to make sure that we're getting the inter and intramuscular contractions. For those of you that want to get a little bit deeper into the kind of geeky stuff, then come and join me over on Motor Skill Application Specialist, where we go through the importance of inter and intramuscular contractions, having the localized power in that glute, but also having the sequence of events happening at the right time. That's it. My kind of exploration through those exercises is because if you use bands, great, they're fantastic, they can be really, really good. But have a little think about why you're using those bands. What I don't like about a band is they're either super light and then you just don't feel anything at all, unlike my imaginary weights, or they've got so much resistance that you can't actually move. So you're trying to do clam walks like this. And obviously the problem is there, like the lights on a Christmas tree, you don't get all of those muscle fibers switching on because you don't get that range across that joint. And that's a problem if you're looking to build muscle, because what you need is high threshold motor units, and you need to go through the range of the joint in order to maximize and get those muscles. The other thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you're working a lot of those exercises under fatigue. Make sure that you're choosing a weight that's appropriate. That's going to create adaptation, and that just doesn't happen with a band, unfortunately. That's why, rather than using a band to get this glute med, what I did was either use body weight. It's still a lot harder, a lot more weight, and also a lot more range in that movement. What we've discovered are there are hundreds of different exercises that you can use to help build glutes. Make sure that you're lifting heavy. Make sure that you're working under fatigue. Other thing, obviously get your diet right, but that's not what this is about. Check your genetics. That's also a very useful, handy tip. You've been amazing. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the questions that you've put on the screen. If I haven't answered them, then I will get back to you. I really appreciate those of you who've put lots of likes on the screen and shared this video. That's awesome. And right, so fantastic. I'm Joanne Groves, and it's been a pleasure.